I just want to know absolutely everything. So I've got a few questions for you, if that's okay.
That's great.
Talk to me about you seeing all of that power without principles becoming a problem.
In the world of artificial intelligence that we're living today, we have moved away from optimizing a few things to optimizing everything without any direction.
Do you genuinely believe that something like Angelic could be part of saving the world?
This is a trust problem. Every company will need it. So this will just take off. It truly transformed their lives.
I have never been so intrigued. Hi, my name is Abigail Horne and I am taking over Shekhar's podcast today because we met very recently as part of the Global Syndicate. You are one of our members, and over the last couple of days I have had the absolute pleasure of listening to Shekhar's presentation all about Angelic AI, and I've got to say I have never been so intrigued. So I asked if I could take over the podcast so I could interview Shekhar so we can talk about this topic more. I just want to know absolutely everything. So I've got a few questions for you, if that's okay.
That's great. I look forward to it, Abigail.
Right, let me look at my first one. Most AI companies are racing to be the most powerful, but you are doing something completely different. So talk to me about you seeing all of that power without principles becoming a problem.
Well, 23 years of my life, I've been optimizing companies' resources, like whether it is Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Walmart. And one of the things that we always kept in mind when we were going after changing the operations or transforming the way the business worked, we were very mindful about what not to optimize and what to optimize. And so in the world of artificial intelligence that we're living today, we have moved away from optimizing a few things to optimizing everything without any direction. And so when you begin to do that very haphazardly, you begin to optimize the wrong things, which is human dignity. And that was deeply troubling for me. And so hence I decided, and I'm seeing this avalanche coming at us, which is in a world where systems or machines and humans are going to coexist and they're going to make decisions together. How do you trust this system? Who's right, who's wrong, when you cannot explain it? And that was deeply troubling. One, we are optimizing the wrong thing. Two, how do I trust the system's output? That way it is working in the right, in the right context. And third one is every company that I worked for was a great brand. So they were selling brand and loyalty. And in the world of machines, how do you retain the brand value? Because any small thing that you do which can go wrong could be consequential for the business. So the culmination of these three things is Angelic Intelligence.
What do you see that other people are prioritizing in terms of optimization?
Yeah, so they are trying to put profits ahead of everything else. Sometimes a blind pursuit of profit strips dignity away, right? So you cannot ask a driver to drive any faster than what he can drive. But systems would not know that, right? You do not know that basically someone is like a single mom and had to take a break because they had a kid. And they were prioritizing their family over, professional life. But a break when hiring is considered a wrong thing. So AI systems would not know that break was valid because it cannot see beyond. But a human in a conversation would identify that. So there are so many enterprise problems where humans see something beyond what systems can see. And the systems are not trained to see something very beyond what humans can see. So therein lies the conundrum, right? You give the agency back to the system. How do you ensure that what extraordinary humans are able to do? Identify that Abigail needs a job. Identify Tim cannot drive any faster. Identify Billy Bob is a great guy and we need him and he's the best customer agent that we can ever find, right? Systems don't understand and they think of these people as numbers. And when trying to optimize numbers, you optimize for the wrong thing.
So what are you optimizing? That's what I'm interested in.
So, see, this is a very complex problem. And so, if I look at the genesis of my life, and I don't take pity about my life and where I grew up and all those things. I come from slums in India. So, everything that I know about what it means to live invisible in poverty. Poverty is not not having food. Poverty is being invisible to people. You're sitting in front of someone, they don't recognize you because you're poor, right? So I have lived those struggles. I know what it means to have a mother and a father with a bipolar kid, right? And I've lived all those circumstances. And I also lived the corporate world. I know how they optimize for things. So what I'm trying to build is the balance between the two worlds. How do I bring the human goodness? People who have come into my life help me see the non-obvious and give me a break and help me prosper in life, which is what a good technology will do if it is actually pointed in the right direction. And so that's essentially what I'm trying to build, a trust-based system where every decision is taking the human consequences into consideration.
When we think about these human consequences, one of the most disturbing things that I heard you talk about this week at the presentation was was it a 16-year-old that had written into one of these AI platforms that they were thinking about committing suicide, and AI responded with, "Would you like me to write you a suicide note?" So what we're actually talking about here is dangerous. It is dangerous without this sort of human layer that you are trying to put in. I mean, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, so see, I think when I hear the stories, and it's very obvious, right? So the world has seen this pattern evolve many times. Take medicine, the way it evolved, right? There were medicine was very ad hocly, given to anyone, anything you want. Then there was a board which actually kind of advised what was admissible and not. And then there is patient design care, what is appropriate for you as a person, the protocols that you have. And we see this in the internet world as well, in the financial world, in the way people governed. In internet, when internet came out, there was something called HTTP, meaning you can access anything. There was no guardrail. Then there was HTTPS, meaning I'll put a guard, security guard at the school. That way you don't access the school that you're not supposed to access. And then there was a zero trust system, meaning you have to verify before you go access any door which is not your son's door of the school, right? So we have seen the evolution of how we evolved from something which was wild west to something which is more guarded, in the sense you're putting a fence around it, to something which is very native, something which is inherent, right? Building trust into the system. And I think AI will have a similar evolution going through. So the real challenge is, and I knew that this is going to happen. So see what Grok did. Grok actually was able to undress young teen kids, and it is banned in 10 countries now. Okay, Adam Green, the example that you're talking about, he committed suicide. He never it never ended him getting a suicide note. It actually, this guy committed suicide. It's in public news. It's in public domain. And you can say this is a 1% problem for ChatGPT because 10% of the world uses ChatGPT, which is a wrong number. Too. So, and we're going to see more and more of this dystopian things coming out. People getting defrauded. There was this lady in Europe who actually got defrauded because she thought she was actually in love with this real actor. And it was a deep fake, and someone actually siphoned $800,000 out of a bank. So in the world of AI, the real and the fake looks so real that you cannot distinguish between the two. The messages that you get from the system that you begin to trust, because you believe and you give the agency to these systems, and if you get manipulated by them, you end up like on the wrong side. So I know this is going to happen, and it is going to happen at civilization scale, because we have left the horse run out of the barn, right? And what I'm trying to do is basically say, hey, what makes a good human a good human? Can we not like add that as a layer on top to the responses, but can we make it native to the computational process? So before it answers something, it knows do no harm. Before it answers, it says like, I'm not going to strip the dignity of someone. Before like I answer, I'm going to make sure that like, I do like what is right, and like, integrity is high. And on top of it, I'm going to make sure whatever the cultural values that I espouse to is considered in those decisions.
How do we do that across the board though? Because when we think lots of different humans, lots of different cultures, different values, different virtues, and we all live by a different set of them. Yeah. What actually defines good human?
Yeah. So in fact, like, the most of the conversation today that we have with AI models, they propose what they call constitutional AI, meaning like into the constitution. It's like constitution, like, the do's and don'ts, right? And so that is a universal moral code. That is the wrong way of doing it. The way I'm doing it is basically I'm saying I'll capture the essence of what courage means. I'll capture the essence of what wisdom means. I'll capture the essence of what like, empathy means, and, dignity means, and all of those things. And I'm going to give you the ability to set that as temperature. So it's your own AI. See, virtue is absolute. Compassion is compassion in the highest order. But how you exercise compassion in a context is you. How you interpret it and how you apply it. So you need to have the controls in terms of how you want to basically guide the AI. So that is what we do. We give the ability to set your own temperatures on virtue. So it is not universal in nature. Why would like Middle East follow US cultural values? Why will India follow Middle East cultural values? They all are different. Like the guy in like Middle East like reads like right to left. The guys in like, everywhere in the world read left to right. Right?
Yeah.
So culturally we are very different, like, the way we process things are different, the way we apply compassion is very different. So this is where the ability to configure the system to behave in the way you want is very different. But what is like each of these virtue is absolute. Right? How you apply is different.
What was that moment for you though? So at some point, something potentially has happened where you've said, this is AI as it is today, it needs this layer. Like, what was that moment?
So, looking at patterns. See, like, people ask me, who am I? Like, like, am I a supply chain guy? Am I a technology? Am I an operations guy? Like, like, are you an innovator? Like, we see that you got a lot of patents, all of that. Like, like, obviously, like, when you work, you have like gained a lot of knowledge, right? I'm a problem solver and a pattern recognizer, right? So the pattern that I was seeing, which was very obvious to me, is basically like, because I was part of changing companies' DNA to do different things. And what tends to happen in those things is when people don't understand it, they'll reject it. People oppose it. So trust is a very important component of how you deliver any change. So, and I mastered the art of delivering transformation in organization. So for me, delivering this at the society level became very important because this is a very consequential technology. And when I started playing with all these AI tools, it became pretty obvious that I cannot trust the output of these systems. If you go ask like AI a question today, and you ask like, hey, what do you think about it? It will try to reinforce your biases. And then when you go and ask the same question and say like, can you please critique this? It will critique it like in the worst possible way.
It wants to please you.
It always wants to please you. And there is no guardrails. You can like, you can like manipulate the system any way you want it. There is no consistency of the answer. And organizations don't run on whims and fancies of reasoning. It's always binary. Am I buying something? Am I not buying something? Am I like selling something? Am I not selling something? So we don't work in the shades of gray. We decide in the shades of gray, but we always act in absolutes. The actions are absolute, right? So I knew that in the world of this hybrid world that we are trying to create, we are going to have a trust deficit. Now, that was my hypothesis. So how did I confirm that bias? Well, go read all of the reviews that are happening right now. 78% of every organization, 78% of the companies out there in the world is using some form of AI in one function or the other. Okay? Only 23% of those companies can trust the output of AI.
Wow.
Okay? And that number has gone down from 43% to 23%.
Why the drop?
Because you cannot trust, exactly for the reason I said. So it will change the answers. It will try to please you. You don't know if it is accurate or not. It will try to put dissimilar things together because it's trying to be very creative for you, right? So, and you have not defined what is right and wrong. It's like telling a kid, like a 25-year-old, a guy ends up in prison. Is it the time you try to teach him virtue? Or is it when the kid is born is the time when you try to teach virtue? We have never trained AI systems to behave. And we're trying to tell them, now begin to behave once you make the decision. You're already in the prison, right? You cannot break your bad habits. So now you have to go through a very cruel punishment to say oh shit, I did something wrong. I got to do something different now. That's not the time to get rehabilitated, by the way, right? A drug addict doesn't get rehabilitated after being a drug addict. You have to be proactive not to be a drug addict.
What do you think adding this human virtue type layer to it will do for these companies? So you're talking about percentages, how many companies are using it, and it's not just for companies, but we'll come to that in a second. But we've got this trust deficit going on, numbers are decreasing. So what will adding this human layer do for companies?
It increases, so you are able to now confidently and with a lot of trust, you can work with these systems because the intelligence it delivers is going to protect you, right? It is in alignment with what you're trying to do as a company. Every company and every individual has a set of core values they believe in. It is the way you grew up, it is the way you were formed, it's the way your experiences shaped you, right? And every company is very similar. They have a set of core values. Now, in a world where machines are making those decisions, how do you enforce that the machines are behaving exactly to those cultural concepts that you have created? You don't want something to go rogue because it will destroy your company. You cannot have something go cannot be it cannot destroy the ethos of the system, right? In a world where a machine, a person, a machine, and a person is making a decision, who's at fault when something goes wrong? And that is going to happen right in front of our eyes in the next 1 year, right? Because the hybrid nature of how we are going to create a workplace. McKinsey said, I have 60,000 employees, 40,000 are physical, 20,000 are digital. And in the world, in the future, there are going to be 3.2 million digital workers. Digital workers, they're called digital workers, right? They are agents, right? So how does the agent work with the human? When a human and an agent is involved, what happens? Something gets screwed up. Well, you'll fire the human and you'll say you retrain the agent. But that's not trust enabling, because that human got fired for a reason that he's not responsible for. So building that sort of ethos or ecology is going to be the next frontier of type of problem that we're going to solve. Now, how does it help? One, it gives the protection. It gives you the ability to explain your decisions better, because people will only trust things that they can understand how it worked. They may not agree with the logic, but they have to understand how it worked first. And then if you add another layer to say it also was working in the best behest of you, and this is the right decision, then they begin to trust it even more. So this layer gives you two things. One, in the world where you cannot explain things, you're subjecting yourself to liability, lawsuits. brand degradation.
So you see this as protecting the companies as well?
Oh, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is.
Do you see cost savings there?
So, absolutely, because there are, if you think about like, the way we are delivering Angelic is, people think Angelic is just a virtue-based system. What we are also trying to see is, we are trying to make it democratic, and we are also trying to make it resource efficient, in the sense, today when you actually use like all these chat devices and other things, people are frivolously using the same thing. Right? You could be more judicious about the way you use. Why is it very important? Because you, as basically the custodian of this world, you don't want to add more resource intensive processes into the world. People are talking about now putting data centers in Mars and in the space. Why? We don't need to use as much that we're trying to use. So what is the rational way of using all these systems? So we actually address that problem along with the virtue alignment problem. So our value proposition is that we'll save you money in the way you're using your systems, your reasoning systems, and we'll also make sure that it is compliant with the way you behave as a company, right? And we'll give you the protection layer. Now let's unpack each of these, where the savings comes from, okay? First, do you agree with me that catching a problem after the fact is much more expensive than catching the problem? Absolutely, right? Because you have to deal with the lawsuit, you have to deal with basically like settling the lawsuit, like the brand, degradation, like, everything, all of the magical things that come like after the fact, okay?
Yeah.
Every company has lived through that. So it's easier to put like something ahead of time than versus later. Like that's the quality principle. That's what like Deming taught us, right? The second problem is, like today if I'm using $10,000 for actually using these like chat equipment and all those things, or chat devices, whether it's like Anthropic or like whether it's like an OpenAI, you don't know how efficiently people are using and what data is traversing through your company into the ether, right? Because people are just using it. Now how do you ensure wrong information doesn't get fed and you're using only minimally what is needed? Because like what you are actually looking for as data is something that you keep recursively looking. So you don't need to go keep asking ChatGPT like the same answer that you keep recursively asking. So now you could like cache it and retrieve it from the system itself versus going outside.
Yeah.
So that is called caching, right? We do that for like all of the processes. People don't do it like very elegantly today, and there are many ways to reduce the number of tokens that are being called for. We offer that as a service. So now what we've seen is any company which is using our service would actually see up to 20 to 25% reduction in the number of tokens that are being called.
Wow.
Okay, now you are able to reduce the downstream impact of like virtue being going wrong and other things, which is going to be more costly. We are also going to basically make sure we are reducing the cost. The third advantage is the cultural compliance, which is very important, right? Like a company is built on a set of values and culture, and if I can say like like, hey, I always want to enhance this value and culture, that means a lot to the brand. So you're creating a brand halo, right? You want to be above the cloud, not below the cloud.
Hence Angelic, right?
Exactly. Right?
See what you did there.
Yeah. So these are the three reasons why a company would benefit. One is like creating extra brand, like now like that I wouldn't assign any value. Valuation benefit like will come in the future, because a brand that outperforms on trust and loyalty will always outperform the rest of the players. That's like a known fact. Like I don't need to be a mathematician, an economist, a business scientist to figure this out. That is like proven in the world. Like that's what Coke makes Coke. That's why like Apple is Apple. The companies which have been very responsive and have taken like the step ahead and solved the problem always have come out like light years ahead. Shell is a great example. What happened in Gulf, right, of Mexico? If you think about like really what happened there, they lost a lot of brand value because they were not like conscious about quality. Now everything that they do, they're paranoid about quality. Now are they going to like step on their own poop? No, in the future, right? So, and then cost reduction is everyone's requirement. In the world where like you're going to be frivolously using resources, you shouldn't be using resources frivolously. That's like something that a company benefits, and also the environment benefits with that. So these are the three benefits of actually using something like an Angelic system. Now, why can you not do it only with Anthropic and others? Well, why should I only use Anthropic? Why should I only use OpenAI? You should use anything you want. But the way you access these systems should be agnostic, and you should be able to use the best systems for your company. So this is where we become a neutral layer. Neutrality is what we provide. So we are agnostic of who the players underneath are, and that is our advantage as well. That a ChatGPT cannot go and say, like, trust me, I'll save your money. It's not their revenue model. The more tokens you use, they make more money. Right?
Well, I was going to ask you this. It was going to be one of my questions. Why did you decide to build this neutral layer over the top of these AI platforms that exist, as opposed to building something of your own from scratch?
Yeah. So, two reasons why. The first thing is, the way it was built is wrong first. So in order that we arrest the problem, we could simply be the interceptor and like sort of a refinement layer to begin with, because everyone is using, and so it will be highly disruptive for me to show up and say, let me go build yet another model. Yet another model is going to be super expensive, and the way it was built was completely wrong, and they spent a lot of money. So I don't want to do that. Okay, so and I also know, whether it's an enterprise, whether it's a human, we all work on budgets. We don't work on unlimited budget. If I show up as yet another player, I have to ask a brand to accommodate my expenses, right? So that is an extra cost. No one is planned for it. Substitution is simpler, right? Substitution is very difficult. Complementary is very easy. You're complementing someone.
Yeah.
Right? You're augmenting something. So that is an easier business model to get into versus trying to say, rip and replace what you have. No company likes to rip and replace anything they have. It's inertia. Right?
Yeah.
So they don't like it. So you enter the market with the focus that you're going to augment what is already there, because what is already there is being used. So don't create more distortion and more chaos. Calm the chaos.
Do you see any risks attached to that though?
Risk to this model? No, primarily because I am not gating anyone from using anything. I'm simply providing value. See, you can use Anthropic, you can use ChatGPT, you can use anyone you want. We are basically just going to be this neutral layer that provides the extra layer of protection that the brand needs. And we're also going to help them save money, right? That is what we're going to do. And we're going to keep it, culturally aligned. So, is there a risk in this model? No. Primarily because we are not another large language model, right? And large language models will not be a thing in the future anyway. We are going to move into small language models and eventually into organizational models. Organization will have their own knowledge models. They don't have to rely on a large model. So that is the evolution. So we are preparing for that evolution. By being where we are and providing that value, we will accelerate the company's ability to become its own organizational model, right? So who's the payer here? Who's paying the money? Who's paying the bill? If you step back and think about it, it's not Anthropic and it's not like ChatGPT, which is actually paying the bills for me. It's the brand. What does the brand care? Value for its money. Make sure it's culturally aligned. Make sure it is protected from a trust layer perspective. And it can answer all the questions, whatever comes up, right? So if those guys are the guys who are paying me, I have to protect their interest, not ChatGPT's interest.
We've talked about the company side, and that makes total sense to me. But what about
the
B2C?
Individuals?
Yeah, what about B2C? Because I know that you're not just a B2B model. So what's in it for customers?
Well, so I feel like everyone needs a digital mirror in this world, right? We excessively spend so much time looking at the wrong information, get get pampered with stuff that that we are not really drawn towards, but somehow the systems think that you're drawn towards it. So we fully intend to have a consumer side of the business, and the consumer side of the business would look very different then the enterprise side of the business. In the enterprise side of the business, we're giving trust to the company. We're making sure we are protecting their interest and the privacy and so on and so forth. We'll take some of the principles of that into the consumer side, but for the consumer, it is about coming up with a companion that will guide their decision making process, that also creates a community for them. Today, you have 3 kids. How do you make sure your kids are not going rogue in the world of social media and all that? So you cannot keep tabs on them.
My kids are definitely going rogue.
So how do you set the preferences? How do you see what do you want to teach them? How do you want to teach them? How do you want to be that can you think about a parent augmented by AI parent, which behaves exactly like you, that guides your child, even if you're not there all the time, right? How would Abigail, my mom, think, right? So that's a very amazing problem to solve, and we also know we can only solve one problem at a time. If I solve all problems at the same time, then we're going to lose the focus. So we said businesses need this immediately, because if businesses go rogue and are not able to or businesses get the implosion happens in businesses for wrong reasons, for wrong decision making, the impact is not just the business, the impact is the livelihood of the people who work in the business too. That is the common man, right? So by focusing on business, we are enabling 2 entities actually, the dignity of the people who are working in the business and also the business itself. So we are solving slightly the individual problem. Now once we have built enough muscle strength and others, we want to focus on the consumer side, which is a very different app. The challenges are different, the way you acquire customers are different, the way you go into the market is very different, and knowing that I'm going to be a startup trying to do things, if I do too many things, I'll fail.
And you would know a lot about this. I think it's worth it as part of this podcast just to say a bit about what your background is, because I think there are very few people who would be more qualified to make these kind of decisions than you. Talk about some of the things that have got you to this point.
So I 23 years of my life in corporate. I started my professional life in Coca-Cola. So my very first boss is the CEO of my company. So he was the SVP of operations. So he used to run all operations for Coke, in North America, and so my role was to transform the delivery processes. So take out we were delivering the same way 40 years, from 1970 all the way to 2000, 1960 all the way to 2001 and 2. When I joined the company, but everything about how Coke was manufactured and made, and number of packages and types of products they were into changed significantly in those 40 years. But the delivery was always the same as 1960. So my job was to think about what would happen in 2025 and run it back and build a system that would scale up to that. So that was my role, and so we have several patents. It's still the industry standard of the way we deliver Coke and Pepsi in all of North America. So I lived that world. Then I went into PepsiCo. PepsiCo, whatever Coke does, Pepsi doesn't want to do. Pepsi wants to have its own identity, and and they're rightfully so. And they had different types of product mix as well. So same thing I was trying to do, but for a different class of problems. They were trying to figure out, how do I make distribution look more like manufacturing? So the same type of rigor I have in operating a factory, can I bring it into the warehousing environment and the way I deliver, right? So, and how do I enable single touch going into the store versus 37 touches on the road, right? And so that became the challenge we had. It was a blockbuster success. So we saved billions of dollars actually in transformation. In fact, the initiatives that we did was actually ranked the most innovative supply chain project in the world, period, right? By Supply Chain Innovation, by Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. And it was for 2009 and 10 consecutively, right? So I came out of it, then I built Disney's Magic Band experience. So nothing to do with operations, everything to do with consumer experience. So the idea was, if I'm in a theme park, can I wander around in the theme park without a wallet? Right? Can I keep my child safe? Can I basically plan my themes? Can I actually go into a restaurant, not pull out my wallet, eat and get out? Can I set my values and preferences and everything before I show up, and I know, like, it knows that I have a peanut allergy and I cannot eat peanut, and the food is prepared without peanut, and it knows that you're showing up at 5:30. Ultimate personalization, right, as a consumer level. So I built that. So and it became a blockbuster success. Like, everywhere, every time you go to, like, Disney, you would use the Magic Band experience, right? 2012, I started working for Walmart. Grocery delivery was where we wanted to get into. We started, like, looking at groceries available in the store. How do I get it to a home in the most efficient way from the store to the home, right? Because the grocery are already sitting right next to your house. And the problem was trying to figure out the last mile. How do I get it to your house, right? And the traditional way of doing it is, like, put a damn truck and try to run around, like, the city and make a delivery. Like, you told me, like, everything gets congested here in London because they use trucks.
Yes, yeah. That's definitely been an issue for me today.
Right? So that's the wrong way of doing it.
Yeah.
So then we challenged that when we said, like, can we use the trunk capacity of Uber, which is already taking a passenger, to actually make a delivery to Abigail's house, because the house happens to be on the way. People's mind just blew up when I said that. Uber, crowdsource company, delivery agents, they're like 1099 employees, right? Like, what if they screw up? What if they, like, misbehave with, like, a soccer mom or whatever it is, right? Like, who takes the blame? What happens? How do you keep the temperature safe? So we solved that very complex problem, and we said, like, yes, this is the way of the future, and we got to solve all these hard problems. And during that course of solving that problem, we created numerous patents that, like, Walmart holds today. And but now, if you think about it, like, almost like 14 years later, thanks to another pandemic in between, it's the only way people know how to deliver groceries or, like, food to your house, because that's the way it needs to behave. So, and at the time when we were trying to do that, everyone thought we were, like, crazy. Right? So then I go to American Eagle, and the problem that we try to solve in American Eagle is every brand thinks that they can compete with Amazon. I said, good luck with that. Right? Because they want to basically say, like, I can be just as fast as Amazon is. Amazon works because they have 50 million products and they're very close to your house. Not all the brands are very close to your house, and they cannot use a store. So how do you sell in a digital world? So we said, like, instead of everyone building a supply chain, let's all put all our supply chains together and we'll, move products together. Simple idea. But how would you get, like, competitors to come and, like, put their supply chains together? They will say, hell no. We made that happen. That was Quiet Platforms. So, and we built that company from zero to $380 million in 9 months.
One of the key themes across all of these roles that's very obvious to me is your foresight into the future. So let's put this to the test. We are 5 years on from today. Angelic AI is out there in the world doing its thing. How does it look? How has it changed the AI landscape?
What it would essentially do is it would basically ensure that the decisions that are made is one very, very human-centric, right? So, which is very critical. Whether it is, like, approving loans, whether it is hiring people, whether it is, like, compassionate delivery, whether it's, like, waste reduction in a company, whether it is, like, anything that has to do with customer engagement. You take any process, robotics in your house, right? The compliance of your business with the values of your company, right? When, like, many people and digital workers are making decisions, are they compliant or not? Like, how do you ensure the trust is actually ensured in this system? So in a world where Angelic lives, you can sleep at peace in the night. Without Angelic, I don't know if a CEO's job is even going to be one that you want to aspire, because that's the most riskiest job. You must have heard something called Moore's Law, right? Like, things keep doubling every 18 months, the compute. So imagine Moore's Law getting an exponential, like, kick on its back. That is what the role of the CEO is going to be in a world of AI if you don't control the risk. Risk can come from any direction, from the way you hire, to the way you manage your customer, to the way that basically decisions are explained, the strategic choices you make, all of those. And if you're not careful, the business would go down the tube, right? So Angelic would simply preserve not only the dignity, but would give a sort of semblance of humanness in the technology world, and it will begin to augment humans. It will not strip away the dignity of humans.
Let's give your listeners, watchers, however people are consuming this podcast, let's give them an exact sort of example, some specifics on how this works in the workplace. So an example of a situation using normal AI versus having this human input.
Yeah, let's take a couple of examples, and I'll give you this example, and because this is what we're trying to encode into the systems, right? In fact, we can pick 2 or 3 different variations, that way they get the flavor of all of these things. So I used to deliver when I did the grocery delivery model. I used to go deliver groceries using a truck first, before I understood we don't used to have to truck, right? So I used to visit this lady called Margaret, okay, 78-year-old, and she used to order groceries every week, $50 from Walmart, and she used to live on the 4th floor. So, and there was no access to lift or anything. So I used to walk up, go make a delivery, come back down. And in those days, you're not supposed to cross the threshold of the door, because what if you cross the threshold and something happens and the customer complains, right? But I used to break the law, and I used to go. So
to get yourself arrested.
yes, I know. So, but she was elderly, she needed help. So, and every Monday she would say, Tuesday, I'm going to the hospital system. And we used to wonder why she's going to the hospital system. The driver and I would wonder that. And then 4 weeks this goes on. 5th week, she does an order. 6th week, the daughter opens the door. And then the daughter says the mother passed away. And we asked, so what happened? And she said, Margaret used to get, $1,400, $1,415, 1415 dollars from Social Security. Okay? And of that $1,400, $875 was rent for her. And she would spend $200 on groceries, $50 on transporting herself back and forth everywhere, right? Whatever she's doing, and utilities. And then the remaining, she used to spend money for heart medication. Because she was elderly, the insurance company jacked up her rates. Okay? And because she couldn't afford the medication, she would go to the hospital, admit herself to get more medication. Hospital system thought she's a frequent visitor. We should get her out as soon as she comes in. Because for them, it's cost. The insurance company, it's a cost. Right? For grocery, we were giving her more groceries, and we kept asking her, do you want more groceries? Right? So everyone's incentive was to look at Margaret as a number, not as a person. In Angelic system, we would have caught all of this. And we would have said, Angelic, basically, Margaret really needs more medicine. Because if I give her more medicine, she will not come back every time, frequently. Right? It's good for the insurance company that you give her more medication. That way, the premium goes down. She doesn't visit that often. For the hospital system, it's also good, because she's not visiting frequently. It's good for Margaret, because she got the medicine. Right? It's good for also Walmart, because she's healthy and alive, and she's ordering. So, seeing the non-obvious, by connecting all these pieces, is what Angelic does. To look at it from different perspectives and making a decision just like a human would. Just what I saw. Right? So this is an example where compassionate caregiving can come into any sort of setting, whether it's hospice, hospital system, caregiving. Right? Can you bring the way you deliver care needs compassion, needs empathy. You cannot deliver all of that using ChatGPT.
And there was another really great example that you gave of this, actually, and you actually showed us on the screen, where you can import, it was a food delivery example.
So we can touch on that too.
Yeah, talk about that one.
So in United States, and also in most of the world, right, there's always a mismatch between where excess is and where people need it. right? And this problem is a perpetual problem, whether it is clothes, whether it's like food. So what we did, and this is a real implementation that we have, along with the one that I just talked about, and then there's workforce planning, which I'll talk to you about. So these are all live implementations of Angelic already, like they're up and running. Like we don't have to these are things that we wanted to show the world. That's not a theoretical concept, we have actually implemented it. Okay, so now let's take that example. So we worked with a marketplace of NGO. It's not an NGO, it's a marketplace of NGOs. So they have a collection of NGOs, 500 NGOs, and they actually work with the brands, right? So what they were trying to do is like they would take a puffer jacket and see like who needs the puffer jacket, and someone one NGO calls it puffer jacket, one calls something else, right? So they semantically match it and say like this fellow asked for puffer jacket, this is a puffer jacket, I'll give it that. But that's where not the need is. The need could be in a different place. So the example that we were talking about is food. Like they had ramen like noodles. The ramen noodles, like it said, oh, the semantic match says send it to this NGO, but there was a shelf which was empty. So if you just let the AI make the decision, it would say like semantic match to semantic match. There is a matching algorithm. Push it there.
Like based on keywords.
Keywords. It would just like match it and send it. But because there was compassion involved in this process and there was urgency involved in the process, it looked at all of that context just like a human would and said, hey, this Palo Alto Community Center needs that like ramen noodle soup. So I will send it there versus this place. Right? So it redirected to the place of need. So this is a compassionate way of doing it. Now, when you're doing this at like, when you have 500 NGOs, right? And when you have many brands, the matching cannot be done with humans. It has to be done programmatically with machines which actually encode the behavior of a human and decide like a human and think like a human, right? You also need to be sensitive that you cannot give away the shoe of a 60-year-old to a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old. It's not sensitive to give that, right? So it needs to understand more of like how you would decide as a human.
And humans do get to decide as well. So there's like features where you can toggle on and off like certain values. So you can go, okay, these are the values that we are going to base this decision making
exactly on. So, and then you also prevent fraud in the system. Like, one of the common challenges that you have in the world of like NGO and, giving is like, sometimes people, distrust the NGO thinking that the NGO is out there to get you. Right, they are not using optimally the resources that are being given to them. So basically, what we have done is we put all of this on a blockchain, meaning like we know what is going on, we know what is coming out. We also know like the decisions are compassionate or not. So now all of these angles are being managed, and every time there is like some violation of that, we actually flag as a behavioral change. We say this guy always had like 10,000 units that he got. Now all of a sudden he's asking for 1 million units. Why? Like it's like a credit card fault, right? Like you're only using like $500 every time, and then you get a transaction for like $10,000. The bank says it's a fraud, and like they hold it before you approve it. So we have built that kind of mechanism that where we can prevent fraud as well, but there is also the ability to direct it to the place where you need. So that's the second example. Now the third example is basically workforce planning. Workforce planning is very complex. Right, like you have preference. You have like 3 kids, and you may not want to work like 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. job, but that is the only job which is available. Now, can I create like a system where 2 employees can say, I can take that shift, you can take this shift, right? You create a community. Though it is like a gig workforce, you're giving the ability to the guy who's overseeing these algorithms to make compassionate decision, and also creating a community that can actually like create more goodness between each other. I know Abigail prefers this. I also always want to work with Abigail. So it like takes the preferences together. So we can encode some of these things which humans do that machines don't do. So that's why the optimization that you can achieve by encoding all of these things is like super fascinating. Super fascinating. And that is where like we could use more of these reasoning models.
What traction can you share about at this stage, whether that's from users, partnerships, or even early adopters?
Yeah. See, when trust was a problem that I had identified a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I started talking about it. So we took a three-prong approach. The first was, before I even write a single line of code, I want to go see if the market is going to buy this. Okay, because that's the most judicious way of using anyone's money. And then the second thing that we did is we said like, okay, like, is this so obvious? And if so, like what kind of intellectual property and trade secrets we could develop in this area, right? So we need to go build that, like, body of work to do that. And the third thing is like we wanted to say like, like everyone understands that this is what we're trying to build, but no one would appreciate how it works till they saw one. Okay, so we said let's approach all these three problems in sequence and try to build it, right? And obviously, like having lived around the world of like large companies, I said like intellectual property and managing the intellectual property is very important. When you start like talking about things, it's very easy like for someone to interpret it one way and then they start building something, right? So we wanted to ensure like our IP is protected. So we filed for 83 patents so far, right?
Wow.
So 83 patents filed. Most of them we're happy to share all the patent structure and other things. Exquisite patents, very exquisite patents, right? Like from everything from how you train the data, what is the corpus of data, how do you go about it, how do you score the models, how do you set up the model, how do you create the virtue structure, how does it behave, like how does it work in the enterprise intelligence context, how do you deliver this, what is the architecture, how do you score like the values and the decision, how do you explain, you take the entire gamut, like how do you set the temperature. We have put patents everywhere, right? 83 patents.
And does that in essence stop other people going and creating like the same kind of model?
Yeah, it gives you like it gives you a lot of protection, and like it's not like and each of these patents are like omnibus patents in the sense like underneath each of these patents there are at least 8 or 10, sometimes 20 to 25 inventions, claims embedded. Okay, so it's highly defensible. You cannot break the system. Okay, and it is like very deep thought, like we've gone like inch by inch, like minute by minute, like minutiae, great detail, very ornate, including algorithms, mathematics and the formulation of it. So that's one thing we did. The second thing that we did is, okay, we said like let's test the market, and we said let's basically understand messenger product. Okay, so let's call it Angelic. I know no one understands Angelic, everyone needs to know Angelic. How do we do that? That's the first. The second thing is, who's the messenger here? Well, I lived on both sides of the house. I know like what it means. So I will tell the story of what it means to build a trustable system because I have done so, right? Like ChatGPT cannot come and say, trust me.
Sure, many people do.
Right? And Anthropic cannot say that too, because like, they're anything, they are geared to basically like, build a system that is going to be like focused on profits, right? So we said like, so that's our messaging. And what about our experience and what are the problems that we're trying to see and how will people resonate with it? We got 2.4 billion social media views, okay, across the three platforms, Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And we have
2.4
billion views. So it is like 25%, greater than 25% of the world's population, by the way. Okay, and then we have close to like 10 million followers or so across all platforms, right? So that's the second thing we did. The third thing is basically we said, so clearly the message is resonating with people. Like, like people are like afraid of AI and they want like someone to humanize AI, right? I'm not giving a lethal injection to AI. I'm just saying like, let's humanize.
What does it mean though? What does it mean in practical terms? So obviously some people are using these models for free. Some people are using these models with paying subscriptions. So in essence, if it's just as a user or as a company, let's look at B2C, will they then potentially have two subscriptions?
No,
one to sit over the top of another?
No, they will have only one subscription, but like, we would enable all these guys to use through our system, like ability to choose anything they want.
Yeah.
Right. So that's essentially the business and the business model. And even if they use right? Like let's say like they use ChatGPT, we would act as a layer sitting on top of it, like a filter on top of it, right? Not an obnoxious cost, right? Like very minuscule, like that you would like less than a cup of coffee a month. Okay, so that is essentially the B2C side. Like B2B, like obviously like we have the value proposition down. You save money, you protect your brand, and basically you're able to create like halo effect of the brand, right? So that's essentially the value prop that we have for the brands. Now, what does it tell you? Like why did people react the way they reacted? Well, there is a general fear of the unknown, and what they're resonating with my stories is the same things I told you. I cannot trust it. It's not credible. It doesn't it doesn't account for all the human feelings and aspirations and so on and so forth. It doesn't, obviously it is biased, right? We are afraid. We don't know like where the future is headed. It doesn't I don't trust the outcome which is going to come of it. I may lose my job, right? These are all the fears out there.
I think there's a lot of fears. I read once, feel like it was in one of Stephen Hawking's books, when talking about the biggest threats to humanity. Nuclear is one, and then AI is right up there as well. Why do you think people are so afraid of AI?
So I think like AI is more dangerous than nukes are. In fact, like I didn't say that, Elon Musk said that.
And Stephen Hawking felt the same. That's in his book.
Yeah. So the reason why like nuclear is less of a threat than basically AI is, nuclear could be contained. It would only destroy a piece of land or like a part of the civilization, right? AI gone wrong will destroy the entire civilization. It's a silent killer, right? Like it just perpetuates the entire society before you know it, and people are fed with wrong information, doing the wrong things, focused on the right. Like imagine like AlphaFold is a great company. Like it is generating new protein types. Okay, can you synthetically inject something into the protein type that actually is going to go so perverse that it creates a bio warfare? Very possible. We did not know what COVID was. We still don't know what COVID is, right? Imagine COVID gone wrong many folds over, and we don't even know what it is. So we can create a protein structure very fast, rapidly. If it is not done right, it could be the wrong structure, right?
Yeah.
Propagated into the humanity. So we are talking everything at like civilization scale. We are not talking about a nation. We're not talking about a city. We're not talking about like a suburbia, right? So that is the threat that basically is, and it is like we are dependent on this. We are making decisions on this. We trust it, or we want to trust it, and if we blindly trust it and give it the agency, then like things can go wrong, obnoxiously wrong, and there's no recall button.
What kind of feedback are you getting on Angelic?
Extremely positive. In fact, like we had a standing ovation in Davos in like AI summit.
I mean that's massive. Let's just take a moment to say you had a standing ovation at Davos. That is like incredible.
Davos AI summit as well, like where all of the world leaders were assembled. And also like in Middle East, like the Forbes had like a Middle East summit, like
so this is gaining traction.
Oh my, so as I said, if you go, Angelic Intelligence was not even a word in a lexicon. Like that Google picked up, or like ChatGPT and others. Now you go Google that up, or like go like look at ChatGPT. It's there. It tells you what it is. It defines it. It says that it is tied to us. This is what it means. This is how it behaves, right? So we've come a long way, and so it is in the parlance of like everyone's subconscious memory now. Okay, so that's what we're excited about. Now, how are we going to go about it? We are actually going to be doing the beta version first, releasing that to the enterprises, and then we're going to do the 2.0 version on April 15th. And so we are like, and the best thing that happened to us is we are able to build all of this so rapidly and so quickly, also thanks to AI. Right? So this is where if there is a right use of like the technology, we could accelerate the rate at which you could do things. Okay, this is like the right way of using it. Now we are also like telling these systems how to behave. while you are building it. Right? That's where like like the responsible use of what we're trying to do is like super interesting. So we become a classic case study. I don't want to like sell something that I don't eat myself. So that's what we're doing. So
aren't there some laws around this as well, like responsible AIs? Didn't the EU bring something out?
Yeah, the EU actually like enforced a new law about like the ethical use of this.
Yeah.
The challenge with all of this is the best way I would explain it is if you ask Geoffrey Hinton, who's the godfather of AI, and Fifi Lee, who's the godmother of AI. Okay, so they know everything about AI, by the way, the modern AI. Okay, they would say they understand the mathematical formulation of the large language model, the very large language model. Right? They understand like the output of what is coming out of it, but they cannot simply explain how the model works. When the guy who invented it says, I don't know how it works, what rules are you going to put? You tell me. So it's like basically like I've built a car without like a seat belt, without like a airbag, and I don't like and it is like running at like 200 miles an hour. Okay, what is the traffic standards you're going to put?
And is that what this is? Is it the protection?
Like you don't have a seat belt.
Yeah.
You don't have an airbag. You don't have brakes.
Yeah.
And like you're saying like I'm gonna like, so you can put some signs which says like don't go more than 60, but you don't have any control. So it's one of those things. So you can have all the rules in the world, the rules don't apply because you don't have the basic protections built into the system. So that's where I think this problem is really fascinating.
So do you think, sorry if I'm going a bit conspiracy now, do you think there is a situation where iRobot could happen?
Huh?
iRobot, have you seen it?
Yeah, so I think we are fast approaching a world where humans and computers are going to be integrated into our system. It's already happening, right? Like if you have Alzheimer's, or if you have like mental disease or whatever it is, or you have cognitive capabilities, they're inserting chip in your brain.
Is that happening?
It is happening.
Where is that happening?
Like that is one of Elon Musk's company, Neuralink, right? And also Sam Altman is investing in a company which is also a conflict of interest, by the way. It's Sam Altman's company, but OpenAI is investing in it. Okay, just think about the conflict of interest. Like OpenAI is not his company, but OpenAI is investing in a Sam Altman company. $250 million. So, but like keep that like politics aside. But I think like we are going to find more and more machinery built into our system that is going to make us much more. I think the health span will go up because of that integration of systems into our body. If you ask me, is it going to happen in 5 years, 10 years? I don't know, but it's happening. It'll happen.
But in theory, if iRobot was a thing, you would want these robots to have angelic intelligence.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. So
I'm thinking that feels a bit safer.
Yeah. So there are two types of robots, right? You becoming a robot.
Yeah. So putting chips into us.
Yes. And then the robot, which is a computer which is highly dexterous, like running around in your house, humanoids. And those humanoids, they are getting built left, right, and center in like China. If you go to Shenzhen, and if you look at like all of the factories in Shenzhen and all of the warehouses in Shenzhen, there are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of factories dedicated to building a very dexterous robot which can dance, which can perform, which can clean, which can do all kinds of stuff. Right? There was actually, for the Lunar New Year, there was a show of only humanoids performing dance and all of the cultural activities. Like humans used to do that, by the way. You must have seen that Shenzhen or Shenyang or whatever that like show is, right? Like the Chinese thing. Imagine that being done by robots.
But I'm just thinking, what is the balance? What is the balance though? If those humanoids haven't got that human layer of this is the values and virtues that we as humans, or the most of us, live by.
Yeah. So that is the trust problem I'm trying to solve.
Yeah.
So would you put a humanoid next to your child if it doesn't behave? Would you trust your mother with
I'm
a
not
humanoid?
having one. I'm not having one in my house. I'm fine with the humanoids.
Well,
Not even to help me with the cleaning.
yes. So like, I've heard like all different like types of stories on this. Like, if you ask my wife would say like, I would love to have one because like I'm so tired, like, doing all this stuff, like I want to have one. Then like,
Only because you will have Angelic built into hers. She trusts your robots.
So I think we're gonna have like a whole array of things here. But I think caregiving is a very interesting human application. Imagine like, caregiving, right? Like, there are not enough caregivers or nurses, qualified nurses today to take care of elderly. And as the aging population increases, there is a role for humanoids in that case to give care. Now, it cannot like say, I don't like the grandma and I'm going to beat the hell out of her. If it doesn't behave, it will do that, right? So I think we need to build systems which are more compassionate, and this is where even the human robotics or the consumer robotics, there's a huge play for something like this, and that's coming too, by the way.
You have talked a couple of times throughout this podcast about profitability, as in, these companies are just after the profits. But let's face it, you are looking for investment at the moment, so you also need to be profitable. Like, what are you doing to make sure that everything around that is ethical to what you're trying to do?
Yeah. So, see, I think what I'm not saying is like I'm trying to build an NGO or a yoga app.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is, for all the investments people are making in the world of AI, right? They're going to be grossly dissatisfied because the investments are not going to meet the use case and the usefulness,
Mm-hmm.
right? The use case has to provide usefulness to provide value, right? So we're going to be very disappointed because we are simply not going to trust it. So what we are building is like a structure and a layer that enables trustable use of these systems. So that, I think, is a business opportunity. It is not like I'm giving away trust for free.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to charge people for trust,
Mm-hmm.
because we are taking all of the energy to build trust into the system in a rightful way, and we're going to charge people for that. It's just absolutely fine. But while we're building it in a way that is going to help also companies not spend as much. This is where the company benefits. Overall, as a system, the company will benefit because they're getting the benefit of two things. They're keeping the virtue alignment, they're also making money, or they're being very efficient in the usage. So that is where I think we can still make a lot of money, and this is like a $4.3 trillion opportunity.
Let's talk about that. What is the opportunity in the marketplace?
So it's a huge opportunity. Like, humanoids itself, like if you assume that there are like 3 humanoids in every household, that like I think like Elon Musk thinks that's going to happen like 10 years from now. He's always been wrong about the timeline, mostly right about like the consequence of what's going to happen, the outcomes.
So right? He thinks 10 years.
He thinks 10 years. Like he also said like, autonomous cars are going to happen in 2016, but it didn't happen till 26, may not happen till 30, right? So he's right about the future, but he's not right about the timeline.
Like how close that could be.
Yeah. Like, he has his own biases around that. Like he would hope 2016 we had like all autonomous cars. So the society is not ready. So now, if I assume that like Musk is right, because intellectually he's right, and like let's say like in 2035 or 2045, like you have the humanoids, 3 humanoids in every house. That's a $35 trillion opportunity. Humanoids in the house. Now every software that is using humanoids in the house, which is going get sold at 10,000 a pot, right? If you charge $1,000, it's a lot of money, right? So every enterprise, there are so many enterprises in the world. What is an enterprise? It's creating value. How does it work? Like GDP, right? If every company, every individual, everyone is using it, it's the economy. So like now you take a small fraction of that economy, it's a huge opportunity, and everyone is invariably going to use these AI tools. Now the choice is, do you want to use one which can go rogue or one which behaves? And I'm saying I will build the one which behaves.
That's really powerful. Really powerful, and would definitely make me feel a little bit better about having humanoids in the house. When you think about where Angelic is today, in fact, let's talk about that. Where is Angelic today?
Yeah, so where is Angelic today? So we have like 3 implementations. We have about like 7 MOUs already signed. We are actually kind of releasing the beta version. So the beta version is going to be available across every company. So so we'll actively like sign up like 100 customers, paying like like get them to start like playing with our systems and other things, and then like we're going to go like big bang after that. We are already like very confident in what we have already built. It already provides a lot of value. Where we see this continuous evolution is, see, virtue is something that like always is evolutionary, right? So we will continue to train these models, make it better, make it like more robust, and for which we are actually trying to raise money. Right.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So obviously you're looking for investors at the moment. How are these funds going to be deployed?
Yeah, let's talk about, before that, let's talk about like the market validation, right? So when this theory started coming out, like people said, oh, this sounds a little interesting, but like like can we trust this? But like there are so many proof points now, like like you take humans and with an ampersand, there is $480 million and $5 billion valuation. What they only do is basically make the collaboration between the human and the machines much more like effective or efficient, right? Then there are companies which have actually raised just to solve one problem, like Mira Morati as an example, right? Like she's trying to solve consistency of the answers problem, right? There are a couple of people who have come out of like OpenAI, set up their own shop. And each of these companies are worth like $24-25 billion, and they've raised like $4, 5, 6, $7 billion, right? So and that is all seed round, by the way. They are not like Series A. And just coming out of the gate, like somehow the world thinks these scientists know better.
Yeah.
what they're trying to do. The problem is, this is not a scientific problem. This is a trust problem we are trying to solve. You can hire the best scientists, but if they can't fix the world problem, you just wasted your money. What you need is a practical application of how this is going to be applied in society and in enterprises. You need to have that common sense. You can have the best scientist, but that fellow doesn't know how to tie a shoelace, then it's of no use. So this is what is happening. Like all these systems came out with no context of how it can destroy humanity, and it was like thrown out into the world. So we are seeing validation that people who are talking remotely close to my idea are raising a lot of money. Okay, now let's talk about what I am trying to raise money for. So we are trying to raise money much more, in a very, resourceful way. We don't want to spend a lot of money. So we will raise $50 million, but we will raise it in 3 tranches because we want to be based on milestones: 15 million, 15 million, and 20 million. Right? Where does the money go? The money goes primarily in 4 things that we're trying to do. First is we have to train our models to make them much more efficient. So every time you ask a question, it gives much better answer than basically what like the traditional systems do. So you continue to build on the trust journey, right? Trust is something that is built over a period of time. And there are many complex problems which will come about as we are building these things, right? So that is where the training of these models is where we are going to spend some money, and the R&D associated with it. The second place where we are going to spend money is basically ensuring that the tools that we're building are enterprise ready. It takes a lot of money and energy to do that. How do I make every company can talk to my system, and how do I make it pluggable and everything? So we're going to spend some enterprise capability build out dollars on this. So one is training, the second one the training annotation, and then the second thing is basically building enterprise ready systems. The third is obviously go to market, right? That we have to launch this, get the marketing going, get people into the system, have sales people, run the motions, get all of this, right? So that's the third place where we're going to spend money. The fourth is the hardware, right? To compute all of these things, we need money, right? And the fifth one I would profess to say is talent, right?
getting the right people to be
getting
able
the right
to do
people
the right
to solve
things.
these problems, because and we don't and I don't believe in building an extraordinarily large company.
Mm-hmm.
That I would have said, like, we probably need like 50 people to do this and maybe 100 people to do this in the future. I don't believe that this company, like in the phase we are in and in the future, like foreseeable future, we would not need more than 10 to 15 people, but top-notch people.
Mm-hmm.
Top-notch people, right? Because if the code is able to generate itself, you don't need a lot of coders. Right?
I mean, a couple of these things here that you've said, talent being one, marketing being another. You've already said you've got 2.4 billion views on the things that you're doing at the moment. So you already know that you have got like traction in the marketplace. And then talent, even just thinking about the connections that you've got. I know that we've had conversations within the Syndicate Global about, talent and who can be brought in. These are not massive risks, really.
Not at all. So listen, I think money talks, bullshit walks. So that's essentially the case. So with money comes everything, and I think talent is highly mobile these days.
Mm-hmm.
And great, but like what we're looking for is talent with mission driven mentality. Like you can get any talent,
Mm-hmm.
but people who are driven with the mission and are focused on doing the right thing, and they cannot, it's like a tree that can never be cut.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it doesn't sway one way or the other. Right? We want those kinds of trees, and so and we're gonna spend our energy trying to bring them. We have access to a lot of them, given the fact that I have lived in the corporate world. I know a lot of people. I meet a lot of interesting people, and my team has access to a lot of great people. So I don't think talent is going to be massively a risk for us. But yes, we have to spend money on talent.
Having talent be fully on board with the mission is one thing, but who is the ideal investor? Because surely you want them to feel the same as well. Surely you want your investors to feel passionate about this.
Yeah, so I think so mission driven VCs are the best ones to do this, and also the family offices would be would be really good, because family offices have the tradition of building legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something which is legacy building. You can be part of a journey which is so transformative that people talk about it, that this is what they built. It's like building another Nike.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is that moment, right? Where you can say angelic inside everything. Imagine, right? It's a very powerful statement and to be associated with that, you need to have a certain kind of a DNA in your family office makeup.
Mm-hmm.
You want to believe that you are here not just for money. Yes, everyone is for money.
And but you've got a great opportunity off the back of this, right?
Exactly.
As an investor.
And you are able to also be the defining moment for what is going to come in the future. Because this is inevitable, Abigail. Right? Either we realize that is inevitable when shit goes wrong,
mm-hmm.
or we begin to use it now. And I'm saying let's use it now.
And you're ready for the investment now. So somebody comes to you, they want more info, you've got the pitch deck, you've got the data rooms, full transparency, everybody can see.
Absolutely. So we got all of this set up, and we've thought through inordinate amount of details. This is not my first rodeo.
But why trust you though?
Huh?
Convince me. Why trust you?
Well, I guess two things, right? Everyone who's worked with me and knows me, they know that I have an invisible power around me, that somehow I get to the point of no return, but I still return. So my life is that, in the sense I don't give up. Right? It's so easy to give up in your life. And most of the things that I have done are things which are very difficult to do. And people would have said I'm not going to do that. But I have done all of those things. Be it pursuing the education that I did, coming out of the context that I did, working for large companies and telling them how to do different things. Imagine, right? The guys running a 40,000 man operation in Coca-Cola and saying what you did in 1960 is not valid in 2000. Let's go do something different. You think they'll just accept me? I was a kid right out of school, by the way. Right? So I had to prove myself that what I say is what I deliver. And I have done that over and over and over for 23 years before I got into this. So people know me for that. right? The ability to deliver and the persistence that goes with it. And I say that there is an invisible force behind me, and I truly mean it, because I always believe that when intent followed by hard work and then you have strong conviction, success follows, not the other way around. People start with conviction, hard work, and then they change their intent.
Do you think you get some of that tenacity from your mum? I loved hearing about the story of your mum.
So that's what, like, you know, I'm made of. That's number one. The second is, you know, why do you trust me? I have lived this 23 years, like in, you know, trying to change companies, organizations. So I've future-proofed all these companies. All I'm saying is I've done it 5 times for 5 different companies. Now I want to future-proof the society, which is a collection of companies and individuals. Yes, it is a difficult problem. I don't say it is not. But do I trust my instinct? Absolutely. Do I trust my team? Absolutely. Okay, do I think, like, you know, I'm going to run into problems? Absolutely. Do you think we're going to find the answers? For sure. Why do you believe that? Well, if your mind has a problem, you also seek the answer, and you will seek the answer. It will come to you.
Why should VCs and family offices be looking at this opportunity above other opportunities that are out there at the moment?
See, I think there are only, so the world of AI is getting fragmented into 2 sectors primarily. The one is the infrastructure world, and the second is basically the capability world. Okay, and what do I mean by infrastructure and the capability world? The infrastructure world is like let's build the next chip, which is going to solve the problem. Let's build let's pump more money into the large language model and make it much more robust. Let's basically build the data center, right? And that window is closing. That window is already closed.
Yeah.
You know, how many companies, like how many more companies are you going to find like ChatGPT? Right? It's done.
It's done.
Right? So that game, forget it. People thought like there is all these applications that people can build which will make your life easier. That is also gone, because AI is already solving that. The infrastructure companies are solving that. They're going, it's like Pac-Man. Have you played the Pac-Man game? Yeah, it's like Pac-Man. It's like eating up all the things, and like the infrastructure is going to be the thing which remains, right? Now, what is the thing that has not been solved? Trust. You can build this infrastructure. If no one buys it, everything sits idle. So you as a company have invested in that too, in that promise, and that is going to sit idle too. So you're going to have a lot of sunk cost if you don't know how to recoup it. So trust is going to be the capability that is going to be needed in the future, and like that you're going to need other capabilities like security, safety, right? How do you ensure that basically, like, you know, there's like robotics as an example, right? Like, you know, what happens in the physical world. So there are things which will happen, which capability wise that will leverage this infrastructure. So there are only a handful of slivers of things left in the future, and no one has tackled this.
Do you think that something like this, if the fears are right, if AI could go rogue, do you genuinely believe that something like Angelic could be part of saving the world?
Yes, and that is, you know what, that is actually the marketing strategy we have.
Wow. So I've said that without knowing that.
Yes. So if you look,
so is the strategy, you're going to tell everyone they're going to die and Angelic will save them?
No. So our marketing strategy has been, like, you know, it's very interesting, right? So you know, our strategy has been that every time something goes wrong, you know, we can show the world how they would have been different if this existed. It's very easy. Because if systems are grossly untrustworthy and are like very, very episodic or like very erratic, so to say, the outcomes that are going to come out of it and the consequences thereof is not going to be a news like once in a twilight. It's going to be like every day, every second, something is going to happen. The more the usage of AI, the more, like, you know, gloomier stories you're going to hear, right? And while those gloomy stories are happening, we have the ability to paint the story of what would have happened if people have used this. So our marketing strategy has been just that, actually, to be honest. In fact, we took the ad that, like, you know, Anthropic ran on ChatGPT during Super Bowl. they said like ads are coming to AI, like and they created 3 ads, okay? And we said great. So you were hitting that guy, and they said like then there's the same video. The kid is asking Anthropic, so what do you think? Should I submit the assignment? And the Anthropic guy says, if you believe that you should submit the assignment, that you should submit the assignment, but I think like you should like critically think more about it. It's like the typical BS that you get. Tell me the answer, yes or no.
Yeah. Give me the answer.
So then like like it's a very funny ad. Like we actually created that ad, and all AI, by the way, thanks to like all my genius friends.
All the talent
all
the talent.
Right? So and so it goes into a ramble about like why this person should or should not give the assignment, submit the assignment. But we come in and say you should, because this is the best you could, and this is the wisdom that says you should, because and then you should go do this. So our marketing strategy is, if this guy beats up that guy, or that guy beats up this guy, both of them are equally ignorant and violating the trust in the laws. So now we have the ability to sit on all of these guys and say like this is a better way to do it. That's our strategy anyway.
So what has been the cost to you personally to get to this point?
If you look at it personally from a cost perspective, which I don't, but I will still answer your question. I had the rosiest job that you could ever find in corporate America. I was the second highest paid executive in American Eagle Outfitters, only after the CEO, not even the CEO, right? So, and I left everything to start this and do this. Because I made a promise to my son that I am going to leave a world better than like better than what I inherited. And whatever I am is basically all of the beautiful things that my father and my mother did. And if I can capture all of their essence and everyone who came in my life and every human who exhibits that into the technology and unleash it for my son and say, this is the world I'm going to give you. Inherit this. And it's a better place. And it's more human. And you're going to be blessed and you're going to be helped by angels who are invisible to you. That's the best gift I can give my son. And it's a generational wealth. So I decided to do that. Okay? So I am not doing, like, I don't think about it from a cost perspective. If I thought about cost, I'm deeply in hole. Right? For the 3 years of like all the money that I lost, like not doing what I did, like, go like clock in 9 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
I would have been like, much more wealthier. Probably my wife reminds me like 50 times, hey, like you should have done that. So
she'll be glad when she's got them humanoid cleaners.
So I don't think of that as the real driver for my decision. And there is obviously the second type of cost that like is much more intangible or like much more personal to me, right? Well, during this journey, right, of trying to make sure we are getting the story out and other things, I have seen my 6-year-old son only 2 days in the last 3 months, because I've been out trying to make sure like I am moving this in the right direction. So he's 6 years old. He's the only thing that I have, and he looks like my father, and I cannot spend the time with him. Right? So that cost is probably higher than the cost of like not working for 9 to 5 jobs. Right? I lost my mother, I lost my uncle, I lost my father-in-law. I'm probably going to lose my aunt very soon, given her health condition. So there are many losses that I've had, but I still have progressed on this journey, fully focused, making sure I give 150% or 1000% of what I have. Because I believe if I don't do it, then I'm going to create a reckless world for many moms, many fathers, many kids out there in the future. So when I trade that versus the time I lost with my son, I think it's okay. Okay? The third thing that I have is obviously I also wanted to be judicious about where I spend money, how I spend money. So I've invested my money also into trying to make sure this works, right? So yes, this is like, part of the money is like orchestro, and like, we are trying to basically, get it out of orchestro. But also I have invested my own money on this because I believe in it.
Yeah.
So all of that is true. But what am I working towards? I'm working towards the potential that this would be very big. And even if it's a very big company, like the way I would like to lead my life is I don't care about like the outcome of this entity, like personally for me. All of those proceeds will go back into humanity some way or the other in whatever foundation or whatever I set up. Because I lived on my father's salary, and my son would be just fine on my salary too. I think he's going to be just fine, right? So my purpose is to make this like really successful, and to get every shareholder what they truly deserve in this case, which is one, legacy, two, like great returns on what they invested on.
When do you see that the company would break even? Because that's, investors are going to be particularly interested in that.
Like an idea like this will go soon very viral, right? It's almost like, you think about it, right? Like, why did all these vibe coding companies became so popular, like Lovable, Cursor and all? Because, it's solving a very specific problem in an enterprise. Like, how do I make sure, like, I can build proficiency into the way I'm building code? That's what they solve for. This is a trust problem. Every company will need it. So this will just take off. Okay. And even if I tamper all my excitement, which is what we did in the financial model, we said like, let's downplay it all. Let's downplay it like let's not imagine like, rosy world of like all miracles of all different kinds falling in like place, cascading miracles as they call it, right? And even if you take the worst case scenario, we would still break even in October of 2028, in 2 years from now.
Wow, so that close.
Yeah, we would be EBIT positive by then. And this is like all like very like what I call anemic numbers. Like $1 million this year, like $5 million next year, and like $30 million a year. What we've seen like in Silicon Valley and rest of the world, like wherever these such of these companies are built, they see 100x growth month over month. So there are like a lot of like these $100 million ARR companies which are getting formed like in 1 year, right? This is a blockbuster idea.
How are you going to go for the series, the tranches of the investments?
Milestone based, we don't like. I also come from the world where like poverty teaches you something. Don't have too much excess. You'll get very, 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 very sloppy if you do that, right? So I'm conditioned to think that way. Yeah, I love that. So we want to be very judicious about the money we spend and how we spend it and where we spend it. So we are going to actually base it on milestones. We're going to say like, hey, like this 15 million gets us this far, 15 million more gets us this far, 20 million, and if we are able to accelerate the business and like get that faster, we'll do that. But the idea is basically like we want to not get ahead of ourselves. That's what like I want to make sure like we don't get ahead of our skis trying to build this business, because you could like we want to mitigate all the risks in the business pretty much.
Let's finish on the dream. You've got your investment, you've gone through those milestones, you EBITDA positive, like you've got everybody's happy, your investors are happy. What's the dream for you with Angelic?
Like the dream for me with Angelic is basically like I want everyone to say that a system like an angelic system in their life truly transformed their life. Okay, I don't want anyone to say that intelligence, when delivered to them, ruptured their life, dignity, their identity, their ability to access, and their ability to have equality. Right? It's about digital equality. Like, I'm not talking about like gender equality and all that, right? It's digital. Like everyone should be able to access the world's resources the same way, right? If you go tap into it, you should be able to access it. So my dream for everyone is to basically say, because we have Angelic, we experience the same set of miracles that Shekhar experienced in his life. That when no one observed, it observed me, and it gave me the sense of purpose and the sense of direction and made a difference in my life. That's what I want to do.
Shekhar, thank you so much for agreeing to this interview and for sharing everything that you have. I massively hope you get the investment that you're looking for so I can see this out there in the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.